Duplo Expresso.
Hello, Wellington. Hello, viewers. It's great to have you back for another edition of Duplo Expresso. In this week's comment, I'd like to draw our viewers' attention to confirmation that has been coming out lately of some of the controversial things that we here at Duplo Expresso have been saying for well over a year now. Namely, that Lula was betrayed by some key members in his own party's leadership, the Leftist Workers' Party, or PT, and how this betrayal was instrumental for him being in jail for over 13 months now. First, last week we witnessed a public clash between former President Lula's attorneys and a group of individuals with legal background close to the current Workers' Party administration. These people came up with an exotic and roundly inaccurate legal thesis summed up in an article published in almost every blog with ties to the Workers' Party, saying that President Lula's defense attorneys should file for a specific type of appeal which, if granted, would allow him to leave prison immediately. Or so went the article. Problem. On the one hand, none of the authors have any training, background, experience whatsoever in criminal law and prosecution. On the other hand, legal scholars from the field were quick to dismiss this individual's thesis, if we can call it that, stating that not only it did not make any sense legally speaking, but even if it did, it would work to Lula's detriment and not in his favor. If granted, the appeal would actually allow the state to keep him in jail for longer. In view of this, Lula's lawyers rushed to advise their client against it. And what came next? Well, one of these individuals, with close ties to one of the Workers' Party elected state governors, filed a suit with the Brazilian Bar Association, pressing charges against Lula's lawyers, claiming that they were not acting diligently or in their client's best interests. This, of course, is one of the most serious offenses a lawyer can incur in. And, if that were found to be the case, could even result in Lula's legal team being prevented from working as lawyers permanently. So how can we make sense of all this story? Lawyers with ties to the Workers' Party current administration putting undue pressure on its founder and most important leader, former President Lula, with sloppy advice and openly and formally challenging his defense team, his defense attorneys. The picture is not entirely clear at this point. There are several hypotheses. For instance, one of the individuals from this group is believed to be, from the outset, after fame and recognition. She would only be using Lula to this end. And with a considerable degree of success, it must be said. No one knew this person 2 or 3 years ago. She was mainly referred to as some lawyer's ex-wife. Now, after organizing and publishing a compilation of critical articles on Lula's conviction trial, she was able to tour the country to promote it, using the vast Workers' Party network, and went as far as meeting the Pope, other dignitaries, Nobel Prize winners, and the like. Now, being on the spotlight, she even befriended and became romantically involved with a famous Brazilian singer and music composer at a certain point. Of course, in his long walk in public life, spanning over 4 decades, Lula must have met and dealt with many opportunists, such as this person and her clique. None of them, however, were reckless to the point of giving wrong advice that would actually harm Lula's interest and, on top of it, seeking heavy sanctions against Lula's personal lawyers, whose crime was to give their client the right piece of advice. And now comes the second evidence that Duplo Expresso had been right all along. Lula was indeed betrayed by someone in his own party. 85-year-old journalist Mino Carta, the well-respected publisher of a weekly magazine, Carta Capital, who has been friends with former President Lula since the 1970s, wrote an editorial this week in which he enigmatically says, Lula is generous, a good friend to his friends, and among these, he didn't lack traitors. He didn't lack traitors. End of quote. We here at Duplo Expresso pointed to this as early as 2017. And following that, we were heavily attacked by some members of the Workers' Party, who accused us of bringing division to the party and of secretly being at the service of the right-wing coalition in power since the 2016 coup d'etat. Well, we had the audacity to name Lula's traitors when the treason was taking place, trying to prevent Lula from going to jail. Now, 1 year later, things become clearer, and some go as far as voicing the same idea. Better late than never. Unfortunately, Lula is already in jail at this point, for well over a year now, and it is very, very unlikely that he will ever leave it. In view of that, who, after all, has secretly been at the service of the right-wing coalition in power? The answer is the very same people who accused us. That is, the traitors within Lula's party, the Workers' Party. Wellington.
Duplo Expresso.